the meeting prior to consideration of that item. And at that time, could you please advise that you're leaving the meeting? For those participating remotely, you'll be sent an email message advising when you can rejoin the meeting. So the meeting is now being recorded, and I'll take this adjournment for this meeting of the Cambuslang and Rutherglen Area Committee held on the 30th of August 2023. I have apologies from Councillor Bradley and also from Councillor Brogan. Councillor Brown is participating remotely. Councillor Calicis also. We have Councillor Cowan, Councillor Cowie, Councillor Fulton, Councillor Lennon, Councillor Loudon, Councillor Nugent, Councillor Ray and Councillor Walker present. And there are officers also present at the meeting. And with that, I'll hand back to you, Chair, for the business.
Thanks, Pauline. Okay, do we have any declarations of interest? Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Okay, I'll move them as the correct record. Could I have a seconder, please? Thanks, Andrea. Okay, items for noting. Item 3 on the agenda is Scottish Fire and Rescue. We're joined by Commander Lawrence Murphy, and he'll take us through the report.
Okay. Right, can we please? Thank you. Brilliant. Okay. This is the Cambuslang Rutherglen Area Committee report, for the annual report for 22-23, the performance and activity. Next slide, please. Right. Take us through the priorities of the service. We're looking to a reduction in dwelling fires. We're aiming for a reduction in fire casualties and fatalities, a reduction in deliberate fire setting, the same for fires in non-domestic properties. We're looking to reduce road traffic collisions and also unwanted fire signals. And those tie in directly with what we see with our key performance indicators. Next slide, please. In the year, there has been a small reduction in the deliberate primary fires compared to the preceding year. It fluctuates a little bit year on year. In terms of the incidents themselves, they've reduced from 9 to 19 this year from 21 last year. Whenever we get these fires, the locations of the fires are shared with the police, with local housing and with anti-social teams in order to try and generate some community intelligence in order that we can identify patterns. As well as that, within Clydesmore Fire Station, every watch is assigned a ward area within the local area, and it's their responsibility to engage with that ward and try and find ways in which they can reduce these incidents in order to meet the key performance indicators that we set them. So there's always collaboration between local problem-solving groups and with the Anti-Social Community Safety Hub in order to prevent these incidents from happening again. One of the key things to recognise is that deliberate primary fires are also, they tend to be of a criminal nature, and therefore there is a fire investigation aspect to it, and also very often a police investigation aspect to it as well. Okay. Next slide, please. Deliberate secondary fires. We have seen an increase in deliberate secondary fires. To explain to you what a secondary fire is, those tend to be fires involving things, for instance, rubbish, wheelie bins, things that are setting fire outside that don't necessarily always belong to people. Again, they have quite a strong link between the fires themselves and antisocial behaviour. And in order to reduce these kind of incidents, the holistic approach that we take is often one that we take to try and reduce antisocial behaviour as a whole. The operational crews and the community action team that we have based in Clydesmore will monitor hotspots. They carry out community engagement with in the local schools in the areas that are known to them. This is supported by our new Power BI system, which we use to analyse the data that comes in, and we're able to analyse where these hotspots are as well. We also use that to identify areas for illegal fly tipping, and we liaise with the local teams in order to get them uplifted. The spike, there may be reasons for the spike. Well, obviously, the stats threw it a little bit with COVID. People were indoors more often during that 2021 year. So we've seen that little steady increase after that. Other things after that, we're under financial pressure, and therefore youth clubs, etc., aren't as open to the young as they were previously, and perhaps that's an outcome from that. Move on again, please. Accidental dwelling fires. We've had a decrease of 1 from the previous year. The figures for our accidental dwelling fires are actually reasonably low when compared to other areas to start with. And we have an ongoing programme of fire safety engagement and education that we contribute to reduction in the accidental dwelling fires. Our home fire safety visit is probably the primary engagement activity that we use for that. And we'll ensure that all properties have a means of detection, in this case, primarily smoke alarms. And we've carried out 483 visits in the area over the last year. There's a number of other initiatives that we have to encourage our partners to be able to recognise risks that are within households that are at risk. Part of that would be our hazard awareness training that we offer to, whether it be social work, whether it would be any of our partners that are going into these houses, because we don't always go into the house until after the incident. So we recognise that a lot of our partners are in there prior to the incident. So if they can recognise that the hazards before they happen and report back to ourselves. We work closely with social work and other partners to ensure that any members of the local community who are identified as adults at risk are fully supported with the packages that we have to keep them in place. We advertise these home fire safety visits on radio, newspaper and television, as well as word of mouth. And we ensure that any time there has been a domestic incident within a property, we offer what's called a post-domestic incident response, where we will make the local houses aware that there has been a fire in the area, and we're offering a free home fire safety visit in order to protect them from similar. All accidental other building fires. Oh, no worries. Okay. In the last year, we've seen an increase of 1 from the previous reporting period. Again, the numbers are reasonably low. We have an ongoing programme of fire safety engagement and education to reduce these accidental. Oh, no, we went backwards. We're on the next one.
And I made the promise that it would all go to plan, didn't I? I actually did say the words.
No, we're on all accidental other building fires. No, we're okay. Brilliant. I mean, I can continue. It's just not quite as easy for you guys to. No problem. I'm going to mute myself.
We're just going to get IT to have a look, okay? So we'll come back shortly. go through the papers. Okay, thanks, Lawrence.
There we go. That's me. That's me, Green. Okay. Right. If all members are able to turn to the section that says all other buildings all other building fire. Oh, all accidental other building fires. Okay. Right. What you'll be able to see is, as it says, there has been an increase of 1 in accidental building fires in comparison to previous years. Obviously, no increase is good. However, I think that the fact that it has only slightly fluctuated is testament to the hard work that's been done in order to keep these kind of fires down. Since we have seen a return to the workplace over the last few years, we have, after any accidental fire within a non-domestic premise, we have a failure of risk assessment, which is filled out, and then our fire safety enforcement officers go out, visit the premise, try to identify the causes of the fire and try to find solutions in order to prevent that from happening again in the future. They'll provide advice, as I say, and they'll perform a post-fire audit, depending on the nature of the incident. As well as that, our operational crews also perform operational information visits, where they will go out, and although the purpose of those visits is primarily to allow crews to have the information to safely attend and any incident at that premise at any time of the day, it also creates an opportunity for us to spot things which present a possible risk that we can take action to mitigate against early. Pardon me. Again, as I just mentioned, the fire crews at Clydesma will also carry operational intelligence and familiarisation visits to ensure that they're aware of any local risks. Okay, I'm going to move on. The next page will be all fatal fire casualties. Now, as you'll see, we have recorded one fire fatality in the 2022-2023 period. Now, my view is that one is one too much. However, it is worth noting that in previous years we haven't had any, and in comparison to other similar areas, our numbers are lower. Again, I feel that's testimony to particularly things like the home fire safety visit and our work with our partners in order to have the people who have been identified as being at risk referred to us and be able to perform the visits to them. Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Non-fatal fire casualties, excluding precautionary checkups. Now again, we've had a really good result on that, and this year we haven't had any. Okay, which is pretty excellent. And the reason for that is, first of all, making sure the actual fires themselves, the numbers of the fires themselves are down. And the second part is ensuring that in the event of fires, there is early warnings within properties so that people can actually get out from the fire rather than having to be rescued from the fire. So there was a drop from 7 to 0. Every fire casualty that we have follows a reporting procedure, which would come to the station commander like myself, and we would ascertain the circumstances and the extent of injury after any of these incidents. Again, any domestic fire would send out a post-domestic incident response, offering all the homes in that area a home fire safety visit in order to try and prevent future fires from happening there as well. We also work closely with social work, with housing, with other partner agencies in order for them to identify those that they would recognise as possibly being at risk, refer them over to us, and we would try to take action to mitigate the risk of any future fires happening within their property. It's got IT problems. Okay, the next one, the special service road traffic collisions, RTCs. We have had an increase by 1 to 15 incidents within the 2022-23 reporting period. RTCs are quite a difficult one for us to mitigate within an area, because by the very nature of them being RTCs, very often the people that are involved in them are travelling through the area or travelling to the area. They're not necessarily from the area that we're trying to educate and engage with. So it's an issue itself. Also, around our local area, we have motorway systems, which can create a problem for us as well. RTCs remain a priority for the fire service. And again, we work with our partner agencies to reduce the risk on the roads, and driver education programmes, such as we bring in VR and virtual reality and presentations into schools, targeting those at 6 year who are just moving on to becoming drivers, trying to educate them on the dangers, the very real dangers of driving, and the very real dangers of even being a passenger in a car and presenting a distraction to your friend that's driving. We work closely with the community police officers to try and increase road safety awareness and tackle on risk-taking behaviours amongst our young. Thank you. The next is special services, fatal and non-fatal casualties. We worked out that roughly, we see, there's been reached out to 25 of these. Roughly about half of these casualties can be attributed to RTCs. So we do take those away. As well as that, we also have things that would be deemed as being a casualty for us, but they could be things like suicide, where we have been asked to force entry into a house and a person has had suicide. And as well as that, we've also had people who maybe slips, trips and falls. And we're working closely again with services like social services in order to identify these problems and try and mitigate these risks. As well as that, identifying that a lot of some of these people do come from attempts at self-harm or attempts at suicide. We're also working with suicide prevention in order to try and get information, engage with people who may be at risk of suicide. We recognise that the indicators of our home fire safety visit, which would be things like living alone, having alcohol or drug abuse, mental illness, these kind of aspects that place people that possibly been at high risk of fire, also tie in with indicators of people who are at risk of suicide. So there's a couple of initiatives that are running just now where we're distributing information for suicide prevention groups using your home fire safety visits. Move on again. UFAS. Okay. UFAS is basically the unwanted fire alarm calls, false alarms primarily, and they take up a massive amount of our workload. From 1st of July this year, we have vastly reduced the amount of attendances that we are going to these automatic fire alarms, and that we now expect commercial businesses and workplaces to have facilities in place where they have someone inspect and identify why the alarm has been off before calling us out. So hopefully what will leave us with with more time in order to attend other incidents and also work on our preventative work. This does not affect sleeping risks such as hospitals, care homes, hotels, domestic dwellings. They're unaffected by it entirely. If I move on to the next slide, okay. So we have a massive amount of community engagement within the area. In South Lanarkshire, what was that? That was only over the last quarter. So in that last quarter, there was 606 home fire safety visits carried out in South Lanarkshire. And 211 of these were as a direct result of a post-domestic incident. So that's where there's been a fire and we go out and visit for that. If we move on. Our youth volunteer scheme. The youth volunteer scheme is actually based in Coatbridge, but it's a pan-Lanarkshire arrangement. 75% of the kids involved in our youth volunteer scheme come from care backgrounds. And we've actually brought a lot of these kids through. Not only is it giving them a sense of pride, a sense of belonging, teaching them skills for fire safety, but we've now got some of the kids that were involved in that are now volunteering, teaching others on the scheme. So it's shown to be very, very worthwhile on that. Okay, I'll just click through a couple of these, okay. As we spoke about, the home fire safety visit referral pathway. The home fire safety visit is our primary engagement tool with the public. They aim to reduce the fire risks in people's homes. We often collaborate with other agencies in order to try and reach a wider audience of people who are in support. And the partnership working can also improve the quality of the visits by providing additional resources, expertise and knowledge. For instance, we have found ourselves in a situation where maybe someone's in need of fire retardant bedding, or flashing smoke alarms, and it's working with our partner agencies. We're able to get those resources to them and keeping them safe. The bottom part of the picture, what that's also showing is that's part of our hazardous weight awareness training. So we will take representatives, say for instance it was carers in the community. We train them on spotting hazard awareness, and as a result of that, they can actually register, no, this person needs a visit, and we can go out and visit, because they're in the houses before the fire, and we want to be in the houses stopping that fire from happening. Other than that, any questions, people?
Thank you. That was really comprehensive. Thanks. Do you know, I've certainly seen evidence of the partnership working. I had an inquiry with the police and it was antisocial behaviour. And the next time I spoke to the police, they'd already made the referral because they were concerned about the wiring. So, you know, it's happening in practice. Okay, we'll open it up to questions. Andrea?
Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Commander Murphy. That was a good report. I know that the fire service now generally concentrates on prevention. There's a lot of time and effort spent on prevention, and so I just wanted to sort of tie that in with the unwanted fire alarms. The report says that there were 75 of these last year in Rutherglen Central and North, which is my ward. Are these false alarms? Is that what we're talking about? Or are these call-outs to alarms?
The unwanted fire alarms are
false, what we call a false alarm. Yeah, okay. So just a wee slight concern in that when you attend a fire, presumably every minute counts. So if a fire alarm goes off and a key holder or somebody has to then confirm that there's smoke or flames, is that not a time loss that could be perhaps not fatal because these are commercial premises, perhaps empty, but in terms of protecting the buildings, which I know is another service that you provide, it's life and property that you protect. So I'm just wondering if I know it's early, you've just stopped responding to them, but I'm just wondering if these minutes are going to make a difference. Thanks.
We would hope that the actions that we're taking to prevent fires, and we're going to increase that, would be things like our fire enforcement officers and our crews performing operational intelligence visits would allow these facilities, these buildings, these commercial premises to take the action to stop the fire from happening in the first place. And that's what we're looking for. Time will tell, but the data is showing that this is something that's plausible.
Prevention aspect. The firm that I work for, it's not in Rutherglen, you'll be glad to hear. It's in the city centre in St Vincent Street, and we're currently having a fire alarm system fitted, and it's costing £12,000. I would say that's taking steps to prevent fire, but it's in Glasgow city centre, and if that alarm goes off, somebody's going to have to go and confirm that there's a fire before the fire brigade attend, and that seems to me to be a negative. It's a worry, I think.
Potentially, what I would say is, if you like, what I'll do is I'll take that back and I'll try and find out some more information for you and I'll forward that on to you.
Yeah, I'd just be interested to see if those, even small delays, if they do make a difference. Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. Okay, Robert.
And thanks for the report as well. I think it's worth actually saying, first of all, a thank you to the fire service for all the work they do, because, I mean, we're not talking about that today, but you do put obviously lives at risk in your own service in terms of the attendance and so forth. But it's very impressive to see the actual preventative work that you do, which is perhaps not so much appreciated, but is very much behind the scenes to do this. The question I wanted to ask related though to the false alarms and the secondary fires. It seemed to me there was a kind of link there in the sense that the false alarms have gone up quite badly, so have the secondary fires, and there's obviously an antisocial behaviour element to some of these at least. And I just wondered, you said youth clubs and things like that. It doesn't sound to me as if that's really the major cause of the problem. I just wondered if there's anything else that had been identified that was likely to cause this, because that's, not to beat about the bush, if you could get rid of the unwanted false alarms, you could have a third more time to deal with other things, couldn't you? With your officers and things. So it's quite a major thing on anybody's account to try and eliminate this sort of thing. I just wondered if there'd been anything in other areas, perhaps that have been more successful in tackling this or whatever, because, a couple of hundred or so of these things across the area is really a lot. Bear in mind, we're only one bit of the area that you actually have to cover.
Definitely. First of all, just to make clear the difference between secondary fires and these unwanted fire alarms. A secondary fire is, well, a primary fire is a building fire, primarily. A secondary fire is, take for instance, things like wheelie bins, things like that. So when I'm speaking about antisocial behaviour and it's linked to secondary fires, that's the kind of thing we're talking about. When I'm speaking about UFAS and false alarms, those are a totally separate thing. Those tend to be more on a commercial basis. So secondary fires, primarily, anecdotally, kids burning things, whether that's wheelie bins on a winter's night or whether that's grass and trees on a summer's night. That's what our secondary fires tend to be. That's why I spoke about distractionary projects and things like that in order to try and reduce that. The UFAS and the unwanted fire alarms are a separate issue entirely. Those tend to be more in relation with commercial premises. And in those cases, it's about things like educating on how to reduce false alarms. False alarms within these premises can come from things like steam coming off a faulty piece of equipment. Steam will set off a smoke alarm the same way smoke will set off a smoke alarm. It can be things like deodorants getting used in toilets. These are silly things that can set it off. So it's about educating and trying to prevent those kind of things from happening. It could be things like alarm panels being situated close to the exit button for a door and setting these things off. So they are separate in their nature. However, the point that you raised about reducing, if we're able to reduce attendances at AFA and UFAS, that will free up more time for all of us to attend other incidents and also to engage in prevention work. Definitely. That is the key to it.
A silly question for me. I mean, I perhaps wrongly assumed that a lot of the UFASs were malicious calls, if you like, ones that had no basis, where people were, phoning you on their mobiles or whatever, and setting off a false alarm. Is there an element of that in the UFAS, or is it entirely the, if you like, not so much reckless or deliberate, but accidental and negligent type things from premises?
Again, it's not just anecdotal. Actually, it's looking at the data. The UFAS incidents we're talking about in this area in particular, know that they're primarily to do with accidental false alarms, things setting off the alarm panels. False alarms where people make malicious calls can be an issue, but when we compare it to the numbers that we're speaking about today, they're not a primary. They're not a primary issue.
No, that's actually quite reassuring on that one, but still work to be done on the other one, isn't there?
Oh, definitely. And as you say, if we're able to hit the targets on that and reduce that, it allows us to do more engagement and hopefully reduce other things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Okay, Katie.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to join Carol in praising the work of the joint hub meetings in this context, particularly when I've been in touch around issues to do with ASB and deliberate fire raising, and I've had some really helpful information from police and fire and rescue on deliberate fire raising. I've been able to offer a bit of reassurance to residents on that, about preventative action and that sort of working together. I just wondered, I know that obviously the schools are back. I know that going into the autumn, some of the preventative work understandably focuses on fireworks, but had some information last year about how that had been looking at deliberate fire raising as well. I just wondered if either just now or sent out to separately, just for the purpose of letting people know about that, we could have a wee bit more information on what the schools project is likely to look like this year in terms of schools that will be visited. I think it was mostly high schools last year, but with a wee bit of primary as well. So any more information on that would be really good. Thanks.
I can't, off the top of my head, provide you with that information. However, I can say that we try to cover as many bases as we can. We will visit both primary and secondary school on the run-up to the kind of bonfire night. We also do the people who help us kind of thing with some of the younger kids within the primaries and nurseries. The high school aspect doesn't just cover, in fact, both, but they don't just cover the fire. We've also got big aspects of water safety, and we have aspects of driving in there as well. So we try to cover the bases, and we try to fit it to the age group and what the risks tend to be for those age groups. But yes, definitely on the run up to bonfire night, we will be performing visits to primary schools as well as high schools. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any further hands for questions. Okay, thanks very much for the presentation. That was really thorough, and thank you for your ongoing efforts. You know, we'll all agree with that and appreciate you taking the time to come along today.
Thank you, Chairman. If it's okay, I'll just leave just now.
Sure,
Thank
and
you.
apologies for the IT issues.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you.
Take care. Okay, we'll move to item 4 in the agenda, local policing annual update, and we've got Chief Inspector McGovern and Inspector Kevin Miller.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kevin Miller, Area Inspector for Rutherglen and Cambuslang, and as stated, Chief Inspector McGovern, the Area Commander, is here as well. If we can just move on to the next slide, please. And the next one as well, thanks. So our new three-year local policing plan has recently been announced, and our 3 priorities are highlighted on the slide. They are protecting our community, safeguarding our citizens, and enhancing our service. This is what we aim to deliver over the next 3 years. Next slide, please. A large amount of our daily business involves partnership working, as you know. Local officers continue to liaise with partners in the community, share information to detect and deter crime, as well as improve the local area. This can range from low-level vandalisms, where graffiti is identified and removed via the local authority environmental department, to higher-level multi-agency meetings with social work to have safety plans in place for vulnerable members of the community and ensure that preventative action is taken in respect of repeat offenders. We also attend our Community Safety Hub. These are weekly meetings with partners in the local authority housing, anti-social investigation team and Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, which identify problematic tenants, hotspot areas for joint tasking to decrease antisocial behaviour in the locality in the area. Next slide, thanks. So under protecting our communities, youth disorder is one of our biggest challenges in the Rutherglen and Cambuslang locality, and we've taken part in a number of youth disorder intervention during this past year. We instigated and helped set up the Move the Goalposts initiative, which took place for 8 weeks at Halfway Park. This initiative was funded by South Lanarkshire Council. It's a diversionary project where a mobile football pitch is deployed with coaches, youth workers and police to provide youths with an alternative to antisocial behaviour through football. And these events were well attended for the 8 weeks it was running. This year, we also commenced a preventative initiative with the local authority antisocial and housing teams, where police referred details of persistent youth offenders on for parent alert intervention. In total, we've had 17 youths have been referred on and received joint visits from the antisocial team and police officers. And a number of the youths within the locality have been served with unacceptable behaviour notices for antisocial behaviour offences in the Dalmarnock Main Street area of Rutherglen and in Cambuslang. Our proactive patrols continue to engage with youths at identified hotspot areas, and we utilise local and national resources for this, and that's very much based on tasking bids submitted throughout the year in relation to our mounted and support unit resources that we have available to us. Next slide, thank you. Still on the theme of antisocial behaviour, one of the big success stories this year is the purchase of the quad bikes through the support of the Community Safety Partnership. The quad bike patrols have made a significant impact on our ability to combat youth disorder, with groups of youths less able to make off on foot. We utilised the quad bikes during our summer action plan in the month of July this year, and some of the results from the action plan which ran during the month of July are there on the slide for you to see. As you see, we were able to stop and search quite a number of youths. There was a number of arrests, quite a large quantity of alcohol confiscated, and a number of offensive weapons as well. Next slide, thank you. Under safeguarding our citizens, public protection and protecting our most vulnerable citizens is something we would like to do along with in partnership working again. Our campus officers this year delivered school inputs regarding internet safety and sexual crime to senior years at the local high schools. We have a local initiative with community officers and trading standards where we carried out joint visits to vape premises in Rutherglen and Cambuslang, reminding the owners and staff of the legislation and ensuring compliance. We've also recently started a community alcohol partnership for Rutherglen and Cambuslang locality, which we didn't have before. The core group's been set up for this particular community alcohol partnership. We've had several meetings and surveys have been sent out via the schools to the senior years at school. Those surveys have been completed, and during the summer we had further meetings, and there's activity planned for later on this month with joint deployments to identified licensed premises for enforcement of legislation. The school visits are also going to start this term as well, and initially the rollout of this, the focus is going to be in the Rutherglen area, so it's wards 11 and 12 that we're focusing on before moving it wider to the Cambuslang locality as well. The community alcohol partnership has proved very successful in other areas where it's been run, and I'm hopeful that we will have the same results down here locally. Next slide, thank you. Substance-induced harm. Officers continue to gather intelligence and work with partner agencies to disrupt, detect, deter and divert those involved in organised crime. This year, significant cash values have been seized from crime groups operating in the Rutherglen and Cambuslang locality. So this year, there was a house searched in Rutherglen where we recovered 200 grams of heroin and a quantity of ammunition. We also had a multi-agency warrants initiative executed at a car wash in Rutherglen. Health and Safety accompanied local officers on this and they closed down the premises serving a prohibition order. A male was arrested on immigration offences and there was £18,000 plus €3,500 seized from that nominal's address. Another recent notable result was when community officers arrested a male, it was actually community officers on quad bikes, arrested a male and returned him to his home address in Rutherglen, where they discovered controlled drugs, assessed to be Class A drugs, estimated to weigh 1 kilogram with an estimated street value of £50,000. We also recovered a total of £39,260 within the property whilst executing the warrant. Next slide. Acquisitive crime. Proactive policing has resulted in the arrest of a number of prolific housebreakers in the Cambuslang, Whitlaburn and Rutherglen areas this year. Another item of note in relation to bogus crime is where a banking protocol flagged up that a 92-year-old complainer had been at the local branch attempting to withdraw £2,000 for bogus work to his house in Rutherglen. The inquiry revealed that the elderly male had already handed over nearly £10,000 to the suspect for minor repairs to a garden wall. The subsequent inquiry revealed that the same suspect was involved in similar bogus crimes in the Rutherglen area and wider throughout the summer. The suspect has now been identified, arrested and charged. Local policing have also identified 2 males from the Glasgow area as being responsible for a number of thefts of vehicles and thefts from vehicles in the Gilbertfield area of Cambuslang. In total, this small group have been responsible for 20 such crimes across Lanarkshire and they are currently remanded in custody. Still staying on acquisitive crime, I was talking about the bogus crime earlier on, and we have launched some preventative measures. In July this month, we had a bogus crime initiative carried out locally in the Rutherglen and Burnside area, which is where the victim resided for that particular incident. We stopped a number of vehicles in partnership with Trading Standards and DVSA in attendance, and the results are there for you to see. There was almost 200 vehicles stopped and persons checked out. We're also seeing that in terms of acquisitive crime, the increased cost of living is having quite a marked increase in theft by shopliftings and thefts of fuels, not just in our locality but across the board. We have initiated a number of preventative measures that we've put in place. We've put retail crime inputs offered and delivered to all retailers in Rutherglen and Cambuslang to try and curb the shopliftings, and we've issued fuel theft prevention booklets and posters delivered to garages in the Rutherglen and Cambuslang area due to these notable increases that we've had in the drive-off of fuels. Finally, it brings us to road safety. So divisionally, we follow a national programme of road safety events to promote safety and target specific offences. Locally, we utilise trained community officers to tackle the local issues such as speeding and congestion outside schools. We're also supported in this by our colleagues in Divisional Road Policing, and some of the highlights that we've carried out this year are on the slide, as you can see. There was a week of action at Burnside Primary School to implement the car-free zone, which was well adhered to by the public. In May, we had an action plan in conjunction with road policing to target disqualified drivers and speeding complaints and drink drivers. We had the cycling operation, Operation Close Pass, which ran for a week during the month of October in Rutherglen, with the assistance of community officers who cycled the length of Rutherglen, and this highlighted the legislation with regard to cyclists. A number of vehicles were stopped and advised accordingly. Next slide. Thank you. Just before the summer holidays, we had Project Edward, which was a high visibility patrols and police props deployed at various schools during the month of the activity. Officers engaged with children, staff, drivers and parents, providing a visible deterrent, which appeared to affect driver behaviour. School staff were very appreciative of the police presence, and we circulated that via our social media channels. Local Road Safety Action Plan has also been implemented in Rutherglen and Cambuslang locality with speed checks and police props at various locations within the Rutherglen area. And that's it for our presentation. If there's any questions.
Great, thank you. Margaret?
Thank you, Chair. Just to thank you for the report and ask, is it possible to get copies of it? I don't, unless I've missed it. I didn't.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem at all. Yeah, we'll be able to circulate them on. Yeah.
Yeah, because it would be really interesting, particularly in relation to the road safety information and the action plan that you've just talked about. I mean, certainly I know my sort of email inbox is really full of road safety issues, and as you're probably aware, it tends to be an issue of capacity in relation to prioritisation, traffic calming measures, but it is a huge issue. So it'd be really good to be able to go back and say to people, look, we are aware of this, and this is what the police are doing, this is what the action plan will involve, this is where the various speed checks are, etc. So thank you for that, but it would be really interesting for us to be able to, keep people up to date and let them know that we are aware of the issue and this is what we're doing, although obviously we can't please everybody 100% of the time. We would have traffic measures certainly all over my ward, Cambuslang West, they would be everywhere. And also just to kind of thank you for the input that we get in the Whitlaburn stakeholders community safety group. That's regularly attended by the community police in the area, and you're probably aware there's a lot of ongoing issues in Whitlaburn just now around antisocial issues and relating back to what we're saying regarding the fire plan and the figures and information around that. But there was a couple of questions that group had wanted us to raise as councillors when we met with yourselves through the area committee or the police surgeries. There was concern around during the summer in July that there was no cover, holiday cover, which I'd imagine is one of capacity. And I know the quad bikes had certainly made a difference in that regard, but maybe if you could say a wee bit more about that and what the impact has been in terms of there not being any cover and why. I know I did get a response at the time as to why there was no cover, but I mean, if you think of, most big organisations, they have to put in cover for holiday periods. So I was wondering if there had been any sort of progress on that and what was done to make sure there wasn't, a kind of reduction in the response rates, etc. And the other one that's causing people quite a lot of concern is the withdrawal of the campus cops, because they, did a fantastic job, and I know certainly that the residents and the parents are, kind of missing that, and the teachers. So I don't suppose there is kind of any sort of plans to bring that back, but also, is anything being raised, perhaps at, a higher level in terms of, Scottish Police in relation to all of the capacity issues that's kind of leading to have to withdraw these services and the reduction in, you know, cover over holidays, because it is quite concerning. And as I say, the Whitlaw Burn group have asked us to raise this formally. But as I say, other than that, you know, just to thank you for, you know, your support and input in relation to all the Whitlaw Burn groups and activities. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. I'll just touch on this briefly before I bring in Chief Inspector on this one, just to cover some of the points you raised there. The road safety national plan that we follow, unfortunately I won't be able to share the calendar of events with you because we wouldn't catch any speeders if we tell you when we're doing it. So, but I will be able to share some information of the action plans and the things that we've done locally that you can feed back out. In relation to Whitlaw Burn, just quickly, over the summer holiday, I know we had the issue there where the officers were on annual leave. Normally what I plan to do is the campus officers are still with me during the summer holidays for part of it anyway, and I try and deploy them in areas where I need cover during that particular time. On this occasion, there was a period where there was no cover and I had to bring officers from neighbouring wards and Springhall on the quad bikes over to try and provide that cover. But additionally, we still have response policing. That's just community police. We're talking about boots on the ground, which I get totally that is the way to tackle the youth disorder and antisocial behaviour. But we still have response policing who were able to respond to incidents that occurred during that time. In relation to the campus officers, I'll bring Chief Inspector in here. He'd like to touch on that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for your comments, Councillor Walker. Firstly, to touch on the road safety aspect, I have a divisional overview for all of road safety in Lanarkshire as a collective, meet quarterly with partners in Transport Scotland, South Lanarkshire Council roads, and we don't just look at enforcement, we look at education, we look at prevention methods, road layout, etc. And through the feedback we receive from local members, we make the decisions in terms of where we forecast forward, in terms of where we deploy not just our own community policing officers with Unipart devices, but our road policing assets as well, in terms of that wider support that we require in relation to that. In terms of school-based officers, we've got 20 high schools in the whole of South Lanarkshire. And we've got 4 school-based officers. Up until the 1st of April this year, we had 6 school-based officers. We've reduced that to 4. And that has meant a shared officer for 2 of the schools within the Rutherglen locality. As members will be aware, the Chief Constable has made it clear at the start of this year, following the budget revenue being provided by Scottish Government, that hard decisions are having to be made by Police Scotland in terms of how we deploy our officers. And one of those decisions that we've had to make locally is in terms of that cut that we've had to make. We've went from over 17,200 officers nationally to 16,600, and we've felt the effect of that locally within Lanarkshire ourselves. Locally, from my own perspective, whilst I've had to cut that one officer from the school, I have managed to maintain a full complement of community policing officers, the 2 within each ward, and I will do my utmost to maintain that where I absolutely possibly can, because I know the importance that those officers working on behalf of Sergeant Robertson and Inspector Miller have within the Rutherglen and Cambuslang locality. But it is a challenging time for policing in terms of our budget, and we are having to make challenging and difficult decisions.
Okay, Andrea.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks very much for the report. I actually just wanted to, I don't know if I'm the final speaker, but I just wanted to end on an amusing note. Myself and Councillor Loudon and another person, we were out and about in the Springhall area, and we could hear these blooming quad bikes going here, there and everywhere. And we were having a good old moan about these blooming kids and these Neds, and they're, you know, and I was saying that I'd seen one of these Neds flying through Burnside through a red light, and, you know, rah, rah, rah. And over the hill came your 2 officers. So they weren't going through red lights, but I just wanted to say the machines are incredible, and they were quite a sight coming over. So well done for that. It looks as though it's a great tool for you guys. And yeah, they might be mistaken for Neds from time to time by councillors, but you know. Anyway, that was all. I just wanted to mention that. Thanks.
No, yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Cowan, for your comments. It's much appreciated, and I'd just like to place on record as well the thanks from Lanarkshire Division in terms of the support from the Safer South Lanarkshire Board, in terms of the funding and support that we've had to implement them. We've obviously got the officers trained, but without the support of the board and the funding, that wouldn't have been possible. But hopefully moving forward, they will be an asset to the locality in terms of that wider support.
Okay, Robert.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the report as well. I wanted to really ask about the road traffic side of things, because Kevin will be aware that I'm not infrequently having representations about things to do with yellow lines, zigzags and things of this kind in Burnside in particular, and also speeding issues. And I just wondered, really, two questions, if I may. First of all, were we getting the same level of cover on speed cameras and that sort of thing? People have sort of suggested they haven't seen so much of police activity in that direction in the recent past as they once did, perhaps pre-COVID. And secondly, on the zigzags, I think I'm right in saying that lies on the police side of the divide, as opposed to the yellow lines, which are the traffic wardens. I know it's a constant thing, but every time I pass the Burnside shops, there's somebody parking, sometimes the wrong way around, facing the wrong way on the zigzags of those particular lights. It seems to be a particular problem there, and I just wondered if we could give it perhaps a little bit more attention to try and see if we can indict it a bit. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Yes, absolutely. In terms of zigzags, you're 100% right. That is a police enforcement matter, and I'll speak with Kevin after that. We will look at that particular issue you're having locally there, and we'll look to see in terms of what we can do just to publicise that. I'm just wondering whether drivers have forgotten that they're not allowed to park in zigzags, because I do in my own time see that on occasions as well as I pass zigzag lines. In terms of cover, in terms of, I assume you're referring to the deployment of speed devices, uniformed officers deploying speed devices. Again, I go back to the point in terms of the reduction in officers. So the 600 and odd officers that we've reduced have not just came from local policing, but also came from national divisions. And I'm sure members will have seen in press recently the impact that that's had on our road policing national assets. There was some national media recently in terms of a centralised night shift function for our road policing working from Glasgow. That's clearly work ongoing in terms of our operational support division and our road policing senior management who's looking at that. And again, locally here in Lanarkshire, I do have an input in terms of where we deploy our divisional officers and to appoint our national officers. Locally, Kevin has officers who are capable and able to deploy with the Unipar devices, and we do that, and we do that based on where we are having the complaints made to us. But you will be well aware that there are a multitude of competing demands where we have to factor in that as well as the other matters. I remember sitting here a year ago across in the chambers, and I alluded to the fact that only approximately 20% of our incidents attended result in a crime report, and there's been no change in that. Locally within my subdivision, which is Rutherglen and Cambuslang, East Kilbride and Straven localities, our officers had reported last year, in the financial year, 35,000 incidents. So the level of demand is there for us, and we have to try and work out where the prioritisation of that demand and where we're required to deploy our officers.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for your ongoing efforts, and personally, anything that I've raised, I'm sure we'll all agree that we appreciate the response and stuff and your assistance. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay, we'll move on to item 5 on the agenda, and that's update on town centres, and Victoria Eccles will take us through the report.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update members on activity throughout town centres in the Cambuslang and Rutherglen areas. And before I get into the specifics of to town centres, I would just like to draw your attention to point 3.8, and that talks about 2 studies we're doing across all of our town centres. And the first is town centre visioning. In this kind of exercise, we're looking at all the new trends, changes in retail models, changes in consumer behaviour, and basically trying to project how our towns are going to look in the future. We're taking into account things such as the Scottish Government's Town Centre Action Plan and MPF4, and we're trying to come up with kind of visions for how each town could operate in the future to best serve the needs of its community. Each town centre has been considered on an individual basis, and we'll come up, as I say, with individual visions for each town centre as how the town could look. This is important because some of the projects can easily filter down into individual action plans for each town, but it also gives us quite a lot of background information if we're going to go forward for feasibility studies or for funding in the future. So it's quite a good piece of work. In partnership with that, we've also got a net zero study, and it's looking at each town individually again, but looking at how that town could be more carbon friendly in the future and what kind of measures need to be put in place over the next few years to achieve that. Moving on to town centres, in Rutherglen, our officers are working with the Shaping Places for Wellbeing team to develop a town centre action plan. We have town centre action plans in quite a few towns now, and Rutherglen's the next one to get one here. The strategy will look at a number of areas, and we'll work in partnership with all kinds of town centre stakeholders to come up with an activity plan that will meet the needs of the community. That will then be delivered over the next 5 years. Following that, we've also been working with our colleagues in housing, looking at housing needs in the area. Rutherglen's quite an attractive town centre for more housing, and the town centre action plan suggests that a way to regenerate town centres is to increase the housing in the area. So we're having a look here. And finally, in Rutherglen, we are setting up a working group to discuss how best to mark its 900th anniversary as a royal borough, which is coming shortly. Moving on, in Cambuslang, we're very, very near completion of phase 2 of the streetscape works. This is the section of the street that did not get completed in phase 1 due to the temporary scaffolding that was in the area. So the paving is being completed or very near to completion, and we have a slight delay in the street furniture, but that should be put in within the next 30 days or so. This streetscape formed part of the original Cambuslang Town Centre Action Plan, which is due for renewal next year. We work quite closely with Cambuslang Community Council on this. The first action plan, we've managed to achieve quite a lot of its actions, and we will then look at this to develop for the next 5 years. One of the actions in the Cambuslang Town Centre action plan was about waste on the streets, especially commercial waste. It's quite a tricky problem to tackle, but my colleagues in facilities, waste and grounds have come up with a litter strategy, and as part of this they're now working with Cambuslang Community Council to review litter and business waste on the streets. I think Cambuslang Community Council are going to conduct a business survey and work quite closely with us on that. Further, we're working with the Community Council again to launch the Inside Out app. This app acts as a kind of digital notice board to the town centre. The original kind of idea of it was to engage people that perhaps live in the outskirts of the town and don't necessarily always come in. So it kind of works in a way like Facebook's, it's user-generated content, and we have pages for like all the clubs to upload, businesses, events, and it's just like a one-stop shop basically to find out what's happening. So we're going to start marketing that this month and hopefully get a bit of traction on this. That's activity over Cambuslang Rutherglen to date. Thank you.
A lot of activity. Okay, we'll open it up to questions. Margaret?
Thank you, Chair. Just to thank you for the report, and also to acknowledge the huge amount of work that Cambuslang Community Council have afforded to this over the last few years. They have fought tirelessly for Cambuslang and to get funding into the area, and also to acknowledge the support that they've been given from South Lanarkshire Council once they actually were awarded the original, $500,000 grant, and the support that they've had to drive that forward. So thank you for that. And it's good to see that there's going to be a strategy in terms of tackling the waste situation, which, as you say, it's just perennial, and there's nothing more frustrating when you see all the kind of work and effort that's been put in by the community, but yet there's all these big bins sitting in the middle of the main street. So anything that could tackle that, and if I take it the businesses are involved in this. So if you want to maybe say a wee bit more about that and what their ideas are there.
Yeah, so I think Cambuslang Community Council are kind of are liaising with the businesses on our behalf just to try. A lot of the problems in Cambuslang is that there's nowhere for these bins to go. They can't go within the buildings. There's no room behind, so they're left in the street. So we're probably never going to get rid of all the bins, but we could try and reduce it, work together, kind of talk to businesses. I don't think some perhaps know that there's maybe alternatives to that kind of thing and try and reduce it that way. But it's just the topography of the street is very difficult. And in the past, we've put in bin shelters before, but we find that attracts fly tipping and sometimes it gets set on fire, and that's not really been a good solution for us. So try and do it other ways.
Do you know, I would just say I agree with that comment, Margaret, because it's an issue in other areas too, isn't it? It's an issue in Rutherglen Main Street, it's an issue in Burnside Main Street. So yeah, look forward to kind of more detail on that. Katie?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I would also agree with Margaret's comments about the efforts of Cambuslang Community Council and the continuing efforts of Cambuslang Community Council. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that in the future. My question was around the Inside Out app, which I was interested to read a wee bit more about that when often had a wee look at it. And I think it would be good as that's rolling out to get a wee bit more information, just because I know it was commissioned for the council around maybe some of the issues to do with third-party consent and advertising and things, just to make sure that's really clear for people. But my question was more on whether we've had any sort of proactive conversations with trading standards, or if that will happen before it rolls out. And I just know when I was reading about it, I thought that's quite similar to like the Nextdoor app, for example. Other apps are available, but that sort of community notice board and so on, and then some of the local Facebook groups. And I think trading standards do a tremendous amount of work and some really proactive work on scam avoidance for people, which, you know, obviously it can be an issue when it's that sort of user-generated content as well. I just thought that might be something that it would be worth getting a wee bit more information about, just so that people can be reassured that if they use that, it's been sort of proactively monitored in that way as well, to make sure it's not just another avenue that scammers could unfortunately take advantage of people in.
Yeah, the app is totally free, and the way it works is you set up your own page and you're in control of that page, if you like. What we don't have on it in any way is anywhere for chat or any other kind of comments. It's also moderated, so when a page comes in, it has to come through us to put it up, make it live, basically. But I take your point, and we'll have a wee chat with trading standards just to ensure that we're doing the right thing. I say we don't collect any data either. I think you need an email address at first, but apart from that, we're not having any data, and we're also not using it to advertise or anything like that. It's completely funded, so it's free.
Great. Okay, thanks very much. That would be good.
Okay, Robert.
Very much, Chair. Two things I wanted to comment on. Firstly, like others, to speak about the bin problem, if you like, in the commercial areas. I think the initiative with Cambuslang, which I'm well aware of, is actually very productive. It could actually be a bit of a signposter for other areas. It's been one of the longest standing sagas I've had in Burnside, in particular there, and it's hardly a week passes without reports of some issue to do with overflowing bins or the like. And it is actually, it's a minor thing in a sort of way, but it actually does rather detract from the amenity of what's, after all, ultimately a residential area, So that's all quite interesting. Let's see what comes back from that. I wanted to touch on 2026 as well, because I think people maybe don't altogether recognise just how significant this anniversary is and what the potential of it is. Since I last had engagement with you, we've set up, just as up with a meeting last week, a fairly wide-ranging cross-party and community group to take this one forward from the community end. So we'll maybe do liaising with your working group on this one as well. I think it does need a natural balance and a partnership between the council on the one hand and its various agencies, and the community in its various aspects on the other. We've got a little time to go yet, but not as much time as all of that. And I think we need to just have all hands to the tiller to make sure this one gives us all the advantage we can have. We are the oldest rural borough. It is important. I think we both recognise that and reflect it in the way in which we celebrate the anniversary. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Okay, we'll move to item, sorry, I don't think we've got any more questions, have we? No, we haven't. So thanks for the report. Okay, that was very detailed. Thanks, Victoria. Sorry, we'll move to item 6 on the agenda. It's an update Community Partnership Board, and Jen Kerr will take us through the report.
Hi, so have I done that right? Okay, thanks. Hi, I'm Jennifer Kerr, Jen Kerr. I'm the newish Community Engagement Team Manager. I've been in post since June, so I've brought with me my colleague James, who's been much more involved in the development of the partnerships in case you've got any questions I probably wouldn't be able to answer. So I'm just providing this partnership update report for the community partnership for Rutherglen and Cambuslang. I want to introduce you to the partnership and its relationship to the community planning partnership, kind of what its role is and how it kind of sits out there, what it does, and offer to broker a relationship between that partnership and this committee, and or other ways to broker relationships with elected members should that be of interest. Also, just to inform you on what they've been doing and where they're at and what they plan to do next, and provide you with a little bit of information on the participatory budgeting programs that have taken place within their partnership members over the last little while. So first of all, the background of the report kind of just explains how these partnership board community partnerships came about. So they're an amalgamation of different various neighbourhood planning groups, stakeholder groups. We've done quite a bit of neighbourhood planning in this locality. And there's been quite a few stakeholder groups that have come together. Some of them are organised community groups, some of them are community councils. There's a partnership like this in each of the 4 localities. And some of them are a bit more formal with community councils on them and development trusts if they're available. But basically anyone that wants to is welcome to join this partnership. They are locality-wide, so it's a partnership of local partnerships. So excuse the common wording and the confusing wording. We've noted that. But really, they're community-led as well. So they're not officer-led at all. They are community-owned and run partnerships. And even today, I'm not really here to speak on their behalf. I just wanted to let you know about them and what they do. They each have a community chair amongst themselves. Our role is really to facilitate and clerk them and help them with policy support and connections they feel they need. So James does the bulk of that, has been doing that with this partnership for over a year. So they have their own chairs, and those chairs have a place on the Community Planning Partnership Board where they get to speak on behalf of their locality and on behalf of their members. They provide us with a report. We support them to write that if they need it. And that it's the bones of that report, things they've already told us in the Community Planning Board, that I've included here for your information. So again, I don't want to speak on their behalf. However, in the future, should you wish their chair to speak to their chair or find out more about what they're doing, again, we could ask them if you want to broker that. So we just felt it was really important that everyone was aware of them and understood how they operated, and you had a chance to ask questions. But just also to note that this particular group is probably one of the most experienced and most developed ones that we have in the area. And after a year or so of being together, feel that they kind of have a lot of influence over the things they want to have influence over and are getting the things done they want to have done. And at their last report in June to the Community Planning Board, basically said, we don't feel we really need you all that much anymore, but we'll still come to your meeting. And I thought that was really fantastic, that it shows that we are genuinely working, and it's provided a vehicle for them to make the contacts they felt they needed to take leadership in their own communities. So Section 5 of the report tells you a little bit about what they've been up to, how they've come about, the different member parts of them, and where they have neighbourhood plans that are relevant to their board. Section 6 thereafter tells you a little bit more about the participatory budgeting programs that have taken place across the locality. So that's not been organised by the partnership board, more by our team with the members, specific members, and participatory budgeting only happens within priority neighbourhoods, so areas of more deprivation, ones where we've got neighbourhood plans. So it just gives you a bit more information on where that money went, how the community and the partners within that community decided it would go out and it would run. So I'm happy to take any questions. We've also provided the terms of reference at the back of the group as it is, but I would note that they're planning a development day to review those and where they interact with other partners outside the Community Planning Board in the future. So I think it's October, doing development days. So happy to take questions, I say I'm happy to take questions. I'm probably going to pass you over to James for most of them, but happy to take questions or comments.
Thanks for the presentation, Jen. Okay, we'll open it up to questions. No questions, Jen. There you go.
Comments?
Is this because it's your first area committee?
Yeah,
oh,
great.
Hold on. Who have we got?
Okay.
James, did you want to come in? No.
Those questions is fine.
So happy to leave it at that. So I'm glad you're enjoying the role, Jen, and thanks for coming along, giving us an update today. Okay, we'll see you again.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Okay, we will move to item 7 on the agenda. So this is for decision and it's the community grant applications. Do we have any questions or comments on the grants? Martin?
Just like it to be noted that I think this is the first time Councillor Cowie has not had to absent herself. So I think that itself poses a question.
Do you know, that's funny. When I was driving in today and I was thinking over the agenda and I was going, no, I don't think there was anything. I don't think Margaret will be declaring an interest. So we're on the same page. We're on the same page. Right, so are we happy to approve the grants then? Okay, can a seconder please? Martin, thank you. So thank you for your time, everyone, today. Apologies, this room has been so warm, really hot. So appreciate your input. Nice to see you all. Take care.